listening in on that is legal expert Elton Hart. Elton, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Perhaps let's start with this concept of evidence. What constitutes evidence? Because Dumelo Madlala says that a month after the incident, the police came to his house to collect his crutches. They made him sign a document, and when they returned them, they made him sign another document. But they did not tell him what the crutches were needed for. At some point, he also relayed how at the hospital, when he went to go see Senzo Meyiwa's corpse, Kelly Khumalo came in, took off the wristwatch from his left hand. She also continued to drive the car. When Senzo Meyiwa's mother inquired, why are you still driving that car? And he says, well, there's nothing that I can do about that because even the police cannot get that car back. And so when it comes to evidence, would that not have formed part of the evidence? For instance, the car and the watch that was taken, if crutches can be taken a month after the incident?
No, indeed. Anything that is on a crime scene when a crime is committed starts forming part of the evidence, and especially if it's personal items that belong to the deceased person. So in this instance, where we get like crutches, obviously one can say even if they come and fetch it a month later, it was still evidence, or because Zandile Khumalo testified, Tumelo Madlala is going to testify, and he already said something about Zandile actually utilizing one of the crutches to actually attack one of the alleged intruders. So that becomes evidence to see when was it used, how it was used. So the removing and taking away from the crutches is part of the evidence. Also the earrings that Kelly Khumalo removed from Senzo's body and his watch. She was not supposed to do that. After he was declared dead, whoever removes it, it's the pathologist that needs to remove it and hand it over to the family members. So that for me already, it shows that things were moved. And that speaks to the defense's version or the defense's narrative that there was tampering with the crime scene. So that can also now influence the type of evidentiary weight one should put to certain evidence that's tended by the state or the witnesses.
Because Tumelo Madlala is the second person to point out the watch incident. I think it was in the sister, Zandile Khumalo, the first time that she gave testimony, she mentioned the watch. I don't remember her mentioning it the second time around with this new trial. But when it comes to the state witness and the character of the state witness, so he says initially a certain constable or a certain police officer by the name of Buthelezi came to see him. He relayed what had happened, and then she advised after everything that he told her that, well, I think you should go into state protection. He initially refused, but then decided to go into state protection anyway because he was living alone for some 3 weeks. After some time, he realized, well, I've been cheated on a promise that was made and it has not been fulfilled. Is it upon, or of course the defense will go into it, but in terms of the state, is it a missed opportunity not to ask what is that promise that was made? And also in terms of the witness's character as somebody who then takes up, if you will, favors or promises in return for him saying something?
No, and it's a two-cutting-edge sword. One can say that if you are promised something, then you are willing to actually cooperate with the investigation. If something is not going your way, you are not willing to cooperate. So really, will you tell the truth? If the odds are stacked against you, it casts doubt on you. Because when we saw also, he went on a Netflix documentary, and on the previous trial, he was asked about it, and he was sort of half hesitant, dodged, dug and dive about what he was paid and stuff like that. So on things that's not really implicating you in the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, why are you afraid to even mention it? If you say I was paid, yes, I was paid, maybe you can say I won't disclose the amount, but I was paid. And it took lengthy cross-examination to actually get him to concede to these things. So we will only really get to the gist of it once he starts being cross-examined by the defense to now to actually test his version. And now he must remember, and as it is, some of these witnesses, they do listen to the other witnesses via social media and television, even if they say they don't. They listen and they try and tailor their versions to adapt and fit in with what the previous, so that they can't contradict each other. So now, it will now be, Tumelo Madlala must remember what he testified in the first trial. Because it's not only the defense attorneys, it's also the public that's actually listening to see, is this really a friend of Senzo, or is it just a person that's there for money making and to have a good time, and not really going to help with unraveling what really happened to the Bafana Bafana captain.
It's interesting that he kept on mentioning that Ntokozi Sitwala did not come back to the house with them from the hospital. But finally, for us, Elton, when we take a look at this particular witness and what he has relayed so far, especially in terms of the cell phone, his cell phone that was confiscated, Kelly Khumalo's cell phone that was also confiscated. We're not sure at this point who else's cell phone was confiscated. And given that not just this one witness, but a number of witnesses have mentioned Kelly Khumalo, do you perceive that the state will then, perhaps because they've indicated that she's not a person of interest for them, will then change their mind because here are people who are testifying against her?
If the state don't call her, then I would suggest that the state start charging her, because she's been mentioned and she's been linked to the accused, and she's one of the people that was in the house the night Senzo died. So the public will raise their eyebrows as to say, why are you not calling this person? You're calling everybody else except Kelly Khumalo and at this stage, Longetwala. Why are you? Because the state had the opportunity. They're calling other witnesses again, but sort of half hang-tanging on actually bringing Kelly Khumalo and Longetwala to the stand to come and also give their version, because they have been implicated. Longetwala is the one that started running first, and suddenly he disappeared when he got out of the door. So he needs to be called so that we know, is this a concocted version, a fabricated version, or was there really intruders that entered the house and actually led to the death of Senzo Mayiwa, or was it somebody in the house that discharged a firearm, be it accidental or on purpose, that actually led to the death of the Bafana captain?
Yeah, because he also mentioned that the police escorted them from the Khumalo homestead to the Malberton residence where Senzo Mayiwa and Kelly Khumalo were staying at. And during the course of the night, a number of people, there was quite a lot of foot traffic. He mentioned the names of Chico Twala and his son Longwe Twala. When it comes to the witnesses, I'm not sure if you've caught sight of the witness or the state's witness list, but could the defense perhaps want to get some information from those people or that foot traffic, from one of those people that actually came to that house on the night?
The state, if the state don't call them, the defense can utilize or ask the court for assistance from the state to actually subpoena the witnesses that the state doesn't call. And they need to come and explain what were they doing at the house. And obviously, there was questions regarding, was emergency services called on the night? And Zandile Khumalo said she ran to Mapiri's house to seek for help. And there was a long squabble and squeal about it. But one of the things that came out is that they also called Chico Twala on the night. So you had maybe the cognizance to actually call Chico Twala to come to the residence, but not the police. So that is some of the questions that the defense is asking and is going to ask and is going to look at to say that you guys have fabricated your story here. This is a made-up story. There was no alleged intruders. And you could see from the previous cross-examination, Advocate Mshololo, them were already at that door knocking to say, you guys concocted the story of intruders that came into that house on that fateful night in October 2014.
Elton Hart, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.